5 nations boycott Eurovision, citing Israel's participation. Their action is against Israel's war in Gaza and allegations of vote manipulation in the song contest. But why is it so important for Israel to take part? And is the competition's future under threat? This is Inside Story. Hello and welcome to the program. I'm Folly Thibault. United by Music is the official slogan of the Eurovision Song Contest. But this year, 5 countries are united instead in boycotting the event in Vienna, citing the decision to allow Israel to take part. Although not in Europe, Israel is one of the most successful in the pop music competition's history, an event which attracted last year an online and TV audience of more than 2 billion viewers. Opposition to the genocide in Gaza and concerns about allegations of vote manipulation are the main reasons for this year's boycott. Critics also point to what they're calling a blatant double standard that saw Russia being expelled from Eurovision after its invasion of Ukraine, but no such action against Israel, even after killing 72,000 Palestinians in Gaza. So, why is Eurovision so important to Israel and its image? And what impact will the boycott have? We'll speak to our guests shortly, but first, this report from Nargis Mobaligi.
It's supposed to be a fun-filled, colourful music pageant. For 70 years, the Eurovision Song Contest has, according to organisers, showcased peace and unity in a divided world. But not this year.
It's just incredible to be here, and I'm so thankful, and thank you all for the support and for the love.
The decision to allow Israel to participate in this year's competition has been described as the biggest crisis Eurovision has ever faced. It's led to 5 countries, Ireland, the Netherlands, Slovenia, Spain and Iceland, to pull out, and more than 2,000 artists to sign an open letter calling for a boycott. As the event kicked off, there were protests in the host city of Vienna.
It is simply hypocritical to claim that the Eurovision Song Contest is meant to be a celebration of peace, while Israel has been committing genocide in Palestine for nearly 3 years. I believe this is a gross injustice.
Despite its name, the Eurovision Song Contest is not restricted to European nations. All countries with broadcast operations in Europe are eligible to take part. Israel was the first non-European country to participate in 1973. It hosted the event in Tel Aviv in 2019. Since the Gaza genocide began in October 2023, there have been calls for Israel to be banned, just as Russia was in 2022, immediately after its invasion of Ukraine. Last year's results, in which Israel came in second but won the popular vote, led to accusations of vote manipulation. Amnesty International has described the failure to suspend Israel from this year's competition as an act of cowardice, illustrating what the rights group called the blatant double standards when it comes to Israel.
What we're witnessing here is whitewashing of genocide. What we're witnessing here is art washing, and that's what we're protesting against. Instead, we're using the song contest to draw attention to the ongoing displacement, the genocide, and the situation in Palestine.
The controversy surrounding Israel's participation in Eurovision has put immense pressure on the contest, including financially. The boycotts will cost hundreds of thousands of dollars in revenue broadcasters would normally contribute, as well as the reputational damage that will likely follow. Nargis Mobaligi, Al Jazeera for Inside Story.
Let's bring in our guests now for today's show. In Dublin is Steve Wall, a musician and an actor, a member also of the Irish Palestinian Solidarity Campaign. In Vienna, we have Jonathan Hendrickx, assistant professor in media studies at the University of Copenhagen, and in Tel Aviv, Ori Goldberg, a political commentator. A warm welcome to you all. Thank you so much for joining us. Let me start with you, Steve. In Dublin, Ireland withdrew its broadcaster this year from the Eurovision competition to protest Israel's participation. And I know you've been a prominent voice advocating for a boycott. Why, and what concrete outcome do you expect from a boycott?
Well, we all know that art, music, all forms of art are a very powerful propaganda tool. And I mean, Israel has been using this as their Hasbara, as it's called there, for many years now. Ireland has won Eurovision 7 times. And when we won it in 1994, the piece that was in the intermission, there was this piece called Riverdance, which I'm sure you've all heard of. Mm-hmm. And this 7 minutes did more for the image of Ireland abroad than anything before that, and possibly since then. Riverdance exploded, and it changed the perception of Ireland abroad. It portrayed Irish people as, you know, proud of their heritage, their nation, their art, their culture, and it even made Irish people and Irish dancing look sexy, probably for the first time. And it had a massive effect on Irish tourism and the whole sort of misty-eyed dream of Ireland as this country of poets and patriots and scholars. So it's very important to governments, art and music. And Israel are well aware of this. They've been doing it, you know, I mean, back in, I think it was like 2005, they had an initiative called, what was it called? It was called Brand Israel Brand Israel, where they promoted, they had all sorts of things where, say, women of the IDF were posed in lingerie in glossy men's magazines. Then I think by 2011, they were spending like $100 million on promoting Tel Aviv as a gay vacation destination. So all of this stuff. So the Eurovision is part of this. Right. So I'm very proud that our Irish broadcaster has decided not to screen it and for Ireland not to attend.
But Steve, what do you say? What do you say, Steve, to people like Dana International, the Israeli artists who won Eurovision in 1998, I believe, who say that you don't punish an entire country because you disagree politically with the policies of its government? What do you respond to that? Where do you draw the line between state policy and cultural or artistic expression?
I draw the line because why were Russia excluded from it? Because Russia were committing crimes in Ukraine. I mean, these are war crimes. We're seeing a genocide here, ethnic cleansing. It's an apartheid state. So at what point do you say, well, despite all of those proven definitions, we can still have, Eurovision where we pretend none of that is happening? So I would say to that artist, I have nothing against you as an artist, but it's how your government is using events like this to basically gloss over their crimes.
Okay.
And I mean, most of the world sees through that.
Right. Jonathan Hendrickx in Vienna, let me bring you into the conversation. Vienna, of course, is where the Eurovision Song Contest is happening this year. I mean, Eurovision has faced political controversies before, Jonathan. But has it experienced a boycott of this scale? And what do you think are going to be the immediate and also long-term effects on the contest's legitimacy and its participation?
Well, the main boycott was in 1970, because in the year before, 4 countries had shared the win, which was then the main cause for controversy in the competition. What we see now, however, is the first time that there is an active boycott against another participating country, which is what makes this boycott also so much more complicated and, of course, politically sensitive. Now, in the short term, in all honesty, I do not expect any major changes to happen because these will need to come first and foremost from the participating broadcasters, who who have to voice their opinion that they are against the further participation of the Israeli broadcaster Khan. If they do not do so, then it will simply remain business as usual in Eurovision for as long as is possible.
Jonathan, in past controversies, how did the European Broadcasting Union respond if, morality justified banning Russia in 2022 because of its invasion of Ukraine? What is the principle that's keeping Israel in? How do they justify keeping Israel in the competition?
Well, the EBU uses the excuse, so to say, that there is still a majority of broadcasters that is participating in Eurovision that has no real problem with Khan participating. There was a vote at the General Assembly in December last year, which was not directly about the participation of Israel, but was linked to it by voting on new voting rules, where a majority actually voted in favor of this ruling, and thus also indirectly for the continued participation of the Israeli broadcaster Khan, because a direct vote was curtailed by that event organizers. So only if this can happen again at a future event with then a sufficiently high number of fellow broadcasters that can also join in, again, I don't expect a lot to change in the very near future.
All right, Ori Goldberg in Tel Aviv, let me come to you. Why is Eurovision such a big deal for Israel? Even before last year's voting controversy, according to the New York Times, Israel spent at least $1 million in Eurovision marketing. We've even seen Prime Minister Netanyahu himself call on viewers to vote for Israel. Why is this diplomatic and political push for Israel? Why is it so important for them to be part of this competition?
Well, the desire to be normal, to be accepted as part of the West, to not just be the people who fight the good fight, but to be recognized as the co-creators of Judeo-Christian civilization, or whatever claptrap is used these days. Israel was desperate to win, to prove its mettle in any contest that Europe would allow it to enter. And in the mid-1970s, Israel was thrown out of all Asian sports and entertainment confederacies and was basically left without a continent. So Europe took it in. And winning Eurovision meant, at that stage, normalcy, but also a distinct Europeanness, which, as far as Israelis were concerned, was a stamp of propriety. As time grew, Israel was never shy about using Eurovision for pinkwashing and promoting it aggressively through these semi-legal, let's call them, chains of human and non-human influencers. It doesn't surprise me in the least, because this is a primal desire among Israelis. We want to be accepted. We want to be embraced. We really don't understand why the world doesn't see that we're only doing what sensible people are doing, why we're being rejected, why we're being thrown out of restaurants. And Eurovision in many ways is key to that. It's the number one cultural symbol of belonging, of interfacing with Europe, of sharing values of progress, of being able to have one's cake and eat it too. So Israelis take Eurovision very seriously.
But do you think, Ori, you say they take it very seriously, but do you think that Israel may have underestimated the reputational cost of staying in Eurovision? I mean, they may have won the battle to stay in it, but it seems that they've lost the wider public relations war so far. Does that matter to Israel's society?
Israel has very much lost this war, and if I may join in Stephen's pride in the Irish broadcaster, and generally the pride in the 5 countries that are boycotting, I believe that the change is happening now, that the wheel is moving now. It's moving criminally slowly. So many Palestinians have been killed without Israel needing to answer for its actions. So many things Israel has gotten away with, from mass murder to cheating on where the yellow line is. It's almost unbelievable to think that this comes down to participation in Eurovision, boycotting it or not, perhaps even as a boost of energy to the EU to consider suspending the Articles of Association. But I think this is actually happening, and I think Israelis vastly underestimate how much the world hates Israel at the moment, how much support for Israel is seen automatically as expressing a hard, sometimes even an alt-right position. And this is just going to continue happening. There's already a full onslaught of boycotting in the academic arena.
Right.
Israeli researchers are not. They don't get scholarships. They're not invited to universities. I think the process is now beginning to gather acceleration.
Stephen, your thoughts about that, and it could be also argued, Stephen, that the 5 broadcasters who are boycotting this event are themselves using the contest Eurovision for political purpose to send a message directly to the Israeli government, and that this is not what Eurovision is about. What do you respond to that?
I think the government, certainly our government here in Ireland, are responding to the people. I don't think the government is doing it on its own initiative. I mean, we have been staging every month a national march for Palestine. People come from all parts of Ireland. They travel by bus, train, and every way, and thousands of them come and they march through the streets of Dublin for Palestine. And we have Jewish people on the march. We have people from all communities who are just abhorred with what is going on. In the run-up to Eurovision, was it 2 years ago? There was a protest outside RTE, our national broadcaster studios. I was a part of it myself. It was musicians, artists. We, hung banners over the motorway bridge and all of that. And everybody that was going by were honking their horns. There was huge support for it, that Ireland boycott the Eurovision. So our government is responding to the people. And this is important. It's the power of the people who go out and march, the people who actively boycott. I mean, in the 80s, we had the case during the apartheid era in South Africa,
right,
where 11 workers from Dunnes Stores in Ireland refused to handle South African products. And it forced the government to put a ban on South African products. For 3 years, those workers striked. So it's the people who are enacting this change, and the governments are reacting to it.
But Stephen, if the boycott does not change, if the boycott doesn't change Israel's participation or its broader policy, what's the next step? Are there additional measures that you would endorse?
There will be, I think, lots of measures. I think people will just refuse to watch it. I think there will be a campaign that if our national broadcaster ever screens it again, people just won't watch it. It's all down to advertising and audience ratings at the end of the day. That's how it works. People are just disgusted by it.
Jonathan, let me come to you now.
And it's not, like I said, it's not, I have nothing against Israeli artists.
Right.
It's how their government is using it.
Jonathan, let me come to you now, because there's also been accusations of vote manipulation, especially after last year's contest, where Israel got the most audience votes. And Eurovision has now said that they've tightened the rules to curb the manipulation. Can you explain that to us? What exactly have they done? What technical and procedural measures are in place now? And do they address the sort of voter allegations that are being voiced right now?
Yes and no. So what they have changed concretely is that they have reduced the number of votes a person can give per device per live show down from 20 to 10, which means that if you have a laptop, you can vote for 10 times. If you have a smartphone, you can vote for 10 times.
Yeah.
And
I mean, we remember last year,
cards,
Prime Minister Netanyahu on his social media, sorry to interrupt you, just for our viewers, we saw Prime Minister Netanyahu on his social media urge viewers to vote 20 times for Israel. I believe we have that somewhere. That's changed now. So people are only allowed to vote 10 times.
Correct. And the EBU has actually, over the last weekend, put a warning to the Israeli broadcaster because of their campaigns in which they were actively targeting people to vote up to the maximum of 10 times for the Israeli participants, in which the EBU said that this is not in the spirit of the contest, as they framed it. So the EBU is, at their own glacial pace, very slowly acknowledging that maybe mistakes have been made in the past. But we will have to see where this leads to in the near future.
But why didn't they release their findings into the investigation into Israel's vote in 2024?
In general, there is a great lack of transparency when it comes to the voting results. Various broadcasters themselves have said, even recently, that they have no public data themselves on how people in their countries have voted. This is because all voting data is collected by one corporation that the EBU works with. So even many broadcasters themselves have nothing to say really or to prove what they know. Of course, the New York Times article that you have just mentioned was very clear in outlining the results of the Spanish televote last year, in which Israel alone obtained 30 or even 40% of all votes from that country in the final televote, making clear at least that it is relatively easy for just a small handful of people who will all vote 20 times with various devices and credit cards to swing the vote in the favor of one specific country.
All right. Ori, your thoughts about this, the allegations of vote manipulation by Israel and the politicization of voting by Israel. We've talked about why this is happening, but what impact do you think that those sorts of allegations have on Israeli society?
Oh, Israelis are actually thrilled at the thought. We're showing them. We don't really care if the love for the song in the Eurovision Song Contest is authentic. What we want is proof positive that we belong, and we can get that by winning and by forcing the EBU to host the Eurovision Song Contest in Tel Aviv next year. And that means that people will come to us, which, as far as we're concerned, is the way it should be. So Israelis, Israel is not shy about the mechanisms for acquiring influence it has invested billions in all over the world. This Eurovision manipulation is just one example, and Israel has lied so consistently, so thoroughly about every aspect of its demeanor in Gaza, in Lebanon, in Iran, in Syria. It doesn't surprise me in the least that Israel, and I have no doubt that Israel is lying about this as well.
And so if the boycott already doesn't work, same question I asked to Steve, what other measures would you endorse?
Well, I would say that boycotts work in many ways. Boycotts don't necessarily end in denying the rogue country participation. Boycotts generate a process. And the notion that it is possible to stand up to Israel, to call Israel out, to not buy the Israeli official line, especially not in delicate areas like pinkwashing, to deny Israel any claim to normalcy, certainly not to the vibrant, chipper quality that follows the Eurovision. I understand that the Israeli government was going to fund some huge gay event in the Dead Sea in late June as well. To stand up to that has an enormous effect, because the more you stand up to the way Israel is acting, the easier it will be to stand up next time. The lines are drawn and they are taut. Israel is fighting a holding action. It is full of despair. It's trying to preserve any aspect it can of its impunity and its God-granted superiority, insisting that this is not the case, not willing to be seen on the same stage. It has an enormous effect. Kudos to the 5 countries that are boycotting. I hope many more will do so soon. And if that means that the time of Eurovision has passed because the political leveraging for which Israel uses it is excessive, that is a price I'm willing to pay. Israel should pay the consequences for its actions. And if the Eurovision is a good place to start, so be it.
Okay, Steve, your thoughts. Ireland, as you mentioned, has had a long history with Eurovision. Where does this controversy leave all of that? Could this spell the end of Eurovision?
I don't necessarily. I mean, I'm not a big fan of Eurovision anyway, because I think some of the music is just dreadful. I don't know. It has certainly hugely affected its reputation. I mean, I don't think here in Ireland, we're very proud of our music heritage. And we have amazing artists like, Kneecap, Fontaines DC, and my band, The Stunning. We put out a song, Stand Up in This Wicked World, last October, and the video has been shared by thousands online. And thank you, Al Jazeera. We use lots of your footage. It's up to artists, I think. I think artists, will, and it's like artists, like I said, like Kneecap and all, who aren't afraid to speak out. And people are listening,
Yeah,
all the young people are listening.
We have seen sports, film festivals and music events all become now battlegrounds for geopolitical conflict. Is the apolitical entertainment model collapsing everywhere now, you think?
I don't know if calling it a geopolitical conflict is useful in this case, because this is very specific. This is targeted against Israel. True, there are deeper meanings and there are bigger prices to pay at stake. But this is targeted against Israel partially because Israel continues to insist that not only has it not done anything wrong, but that it's fighting the good fight. And sometimes, again, you just have to fight fire with fire. And if that means politically leveraging the Eurovision Song Contest, it's always been political, certainly as far as Israel is concerned. It's always been political in terms of what country votes for what country. And there's absolutely no reason to pretend that this is apolitical or that this is some abstract conflict.
Yeah.
This is fully and wholly directed against Israel, as it should be.
All right. Jonathan, in Vienna, the competition is this weekend, of course, and the EBU, the European Broadcasting Union, now appears trapped between commercial interests, political pressure, even if they deny it, and these revolts by broadcasters, as well as the audience backlash. As a non-profit that's facing financial challenges, do you think it can survive this controversy?
I think it can only survive it if the EBU finds a way to appease as many of its broadcasters as possible. And I say as many as possible because this has been dragging for so long that it will be impossible to please them all. In the, I think right now, unlikely situation in which Cannes would be excluded from further participating in the Eurovision Song Contest, other broadcasters, like the one from Germany and Austria, will then very likely be the ones pulling out themselves. So right now, the situation is so tense that there is no way to prevent other countries from pulling out, whether or not Israel takes part or not. And I think there will have to be a lot of talk, sort of massaging over the coming years, even, I would say, to guarantee this durable future of the Eurovision Song Contest.
Do you expect more broadcasters to pull out, Stephen, if, let's say, Israel was to host the competition next year or the year after?
Absolutely. I think that's a given.
Jonathan, what about you? You think?
I agree, definitely.
And Ori, finally.
Oh, definitely. Like I said, the wheel is now beginning to turn. It's unbelievable it's taken so long, but it's turning.
Thank you. Thank you, gentlemen, for a very interesting conversation. Steve Wall, Jonathan Hendrickx, and Ori Goldberg. Thank you to all three of you for joining us here on Inside Story. And thank you, too, for watching. You can always watch this program again anytime by visiting our website at aljazeera.com. For further discussion, go to our Facebook page. That's facebook.com/AJ Inside Story. You can also join the conversation on X. Our handle is at AJ Inside Story. From me, Folly, Thibault, and the whole team in Doha, thanks for watching. Al Jazeera's coverage continues next in just a few minutes.